All right, all right, all right. Welcome to another edition of Shabbat Lounge. This is Matt,
And Jake here.
and been a minute. It feels like it's been a minute since we've been in the same room together doing this, but I don't know. Maybe life just moves fast. I don't know.
It does that indeed.
Yeah. Well, Jake, we do want to thank people for being here and finding us.
Right, there's plenty of things people could be spending their time on, and we thank you for tuning into what we're doing and checking out what we're working on.
Yep, and we just ask that you would give this a like, subscribe. Please share this with someone that might find it interesting or important to them, and we really appreciate it. And we have something special today, and we really want you not only to like us, but also to do the same thing for our guests today. And so, Jake, who do we have?
So this is John Sliffe of the Enduring Word Museum, and we're going to kind of have him introduce himself and what is the Enduring Word Museum. Hi, John.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Good, thanks.
Well, we appreciate you being with us, and yeah, if you would just take a minute and what is the Enduring Word Museum?
Sure. So the Enduring Word Museum is a collection of biblical artifacts that span about 4,000 years, almost 5,000 years. All of the artifacts are the real thing. It starts with archaeology and then manuscripts, first translations, first printing, and then the Reformation Age. And the newest piece in the exhibit is a 1611, a first edition King James Bible. And we use all these pieces to show people that the Bible we have is true and it's accurate, and we can trust it as God's word to us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So a lot of it is hands-on stuff you can look and see and maybe not touch if it's that if it's that old, but yeah, stuff you can
Yeah.
see with your
Maybe
own
not the
eyes.
hands-on part, but definitely
Yeah,
see.
it's laminated. No. Uh, so yeah, that's sounds like a real interesting collection. So how did you kind of come across some of these items?
So we're always adding to the collection, and being in the museum business, you meet other people in the museum world and biblical artifacts world, and if there's something that I feel like would really make an impact in the story, not just the ooh and ah part of the story, but really be a part of the story, then we put the word out that that's what we're looking for. Sometimes people will contact us and say, hey, we have this or that. Would you be interested in this for the museum? Sometimes they're purchases, sometimes they're donations. Sometimes we have to seek out supporters that will purchase the artifact for us and either donate it to the exhibit, or they'll purchase it and then loan it to the exhibit. So there's different ways that things come in. Recently, we had the opportunity to acquire a first century crucifixion nail for the exhibit. And that was something we'd been praying about, and we didn't know how that would ever come to be. But the Father put us together with another museum that had several, and that curator there said, you know what, you need to have this in your exhibit. And he donated that to us so we'd be able to demonstrate that it was one of the key parts. Crucifixion was done by nail. A lot of people doubt that really took place.
Yeah, that's an awesome piece. That's cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and we encourage people to go check out your website, and it's theenduringwordmuseum.com. Is that correct?
Yes, .org.
Enduringword.org. Okay, so
Yes.
I have it pulled up here, so it's pretty easy to find. So enduringword.org. We encourage people to go check it out, and if they check it out and poke around a little bit, they're going to see an image of an older gentleman, and they're going to see some text about Rusty Mazel. Is that, how did you say his name?
Mazel, yes.
Mazel. And so he seems like he's pretty important, and like maybe you wouldn't be here without some connection with him.
Yeah, he is a wonderful friend and mentor to me. And uh, he started this exhibit about 30 some years ago. And it really started as just a private collection, just something that, in fact, the very first piece he bought was an Ethiopian um, manuscript page of a Middle Ages Psalms 23. And he bought that, just thought it was beautiful, and just called out God's word, just this beautiful piece. And he had it framed in his office. And he had a customer came to him one day, and he was actually in the janitorial supplies business. Had a man come in his office. They're talking business. The man looks up and saw that page, and he got up and he began to read it. And of all the, you know, that spider web of connectivity in our lives that God puts us together, this man had gone to seminary, and one of the languages he learned was a Paleo Ethiopic. And he was able to read that page and affirm to Rusty how important it was. Rusty grew the exhibit out of that, just buying some personal pieces here and there. And people said, well, you should show someone these things. You should take them out and show them. And so we did that a few times, and a few more pieces, and showed a few more. And long story short, God put it on his heart that this is what he was supposed to be doing full time. And so he resigned his paid position and went to work full time at no pay.
Oh wow, yeah, that's amazing.
That's takes some faith there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting language. I don't think I've ever heard of. What did you say it was? It was a pictographic, but it's Ethiopian.
It's Ethiopian. It's not pictographic.
It's like paleo.
It's letter characters, but it's a very old form, kind of like a Paleo Hebrew, but of Ethiopic.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
You guys come see the exhibit sometime. You'll see that piece.
Okay. Yeah. I want to go see that. And so kind of, how did you get connected with Rusty? I'd kind of like to hear how that came to be.
Sure. So it's a bit of a testimony, and I'll try to condense it a little bit so we don't take up the whole night, but give you a little background. I was in the Air Force. I was a flight medic. I was a medic in the back of the aircraft taking care of patients.
Thank you for your service.
I'd gone from active duty to reserves, and I owned a construction company. And God had been calling me. My wife and I just built a house down north of San Diego, and we built this big house, and it was right on the very highest peak of the mountain range that overlooked the ocean. And God told us it was time to sell that and move to Texas. And I said, oh, Lord, why would you tell me to build this house? And now I'm supposed to get rid of it. I don't understand. I must be understanding this incorrectly. And I had the opportunity to do some deployments. So I took that and I kind of did a Jonah. I ran the other way. And I went to Iraq and Afghanistan for a while. And but God didn't lose track of me. And I ended up getting hurt real bad on the second to the last mission I was on. And so I came home a bit broken. And when I got home, I wasn't able to work. My construction company had gone broke while I was gone. And we were losing our cars, and eventually we lost our house and everything. And I was really unable to take care of myself very well. My wife had to help take care of me. And so we said, you know what? All right, God, here we go. We'll go to Texas. I don't understand why. So we packed up our last of our things and we moved to Texas. And my wife had moved here about 6 months before me. It's kind of a convoluted story, but I was still on orders in California and I couldn't move, and surgeries and all this sort of thing. Anyways, my wife got us a house. I came out here. She'd already found her way into a church. I went to church with her, and And the pastor took me aside and he says, I heard that you're stuck at home. And I said, yeah. And he says, you need to get out. You can't stay at home. I heard there's a Bible study on Wednesday mornings. Why don't you go to it? And he told me where it was. Okay. Now, I'd never been to this part of Texas before. I'd always gone to San Antonio. It's where the Air Force bases are. And so I had to put it in my navigation to find this place. I had to put it in navigation to find my house, if you can imagine that. I went down there and Rusty Maisel was teaching that. And at the end of the Bible study, he stands up and he says, I'm building a wooden printing press, and I need some help. Can someone come help me? But I can't afford to pay anyone. And I said, well, I'll come help you, but as you can tell, I'm not much help. I'm really physically limited on what I can do. So I went out there. One little other piece of background: when I was growing up, my dad told me the Bible was a good moral book, but it wasn't accurate anymore. It had been changed too many times. So when I meet Rusty, I had no idea about the museum, of course, and he says, John, tell me about your faith. And I told him, I said, well, I believe in Jesus, and so forth. And this discussion went on to trust in the Bible, and I told him, I said, I thought it was a good moral book, but it wasn't accurate. And he says, wait here for a minute. And he goes out to his car and he brings in a Torah scroll. And he unwraps it and starts explaining to me the history of how the scrolls had come through time and so forth. And then he would go out to his van and he got another piece, and maybe some archaeological pieces and some different pieces. And I remember thinking, who is this guy that has these things in his van?
Yeah.
This isn't possible, right? These things can't be real.
Pile of papers here. And
yeah. And
scrolls.
Rusty was kind of a disorganized guy, so his van was kind of just a bit of a mess, like you say, or suggest. So he's bringing these pieces in, and he's helping to minister to me. I'm sorry, I'm going to give you one more piece of background. When I got home, I was very, very depressed. The PTSD, all these types of things going on. And I was in a very bad place. And Rusty didn't know this, of course, but as he ministered to me and he started to see inside of me, and of course, the Holy Spirit was guiding him. He was a very faithful man. It turned out that Rusty had spent a couple of years in Vietnam and had gone through some very, very tragic things. He was a medic in Vietnam, so we really connected on that level. And then he says, hey, John, why don't you come travel with me? I'm going to take this museum up to Oklahoma. I said, okay, I got nothing else to do. I'll travel with you. And I traveled with him. And the next weekend I traveled with him, and the next one and the next one. And this went on for about a year and a half. And I'd had several surgeries and stuff by then. And I was doing pretty good. And we were in Oklahoma again, and this little country church, we'd been there for 3 days. And at the close of the exhibit, we'd all packed everything up, and we're having pizza. And this older lady sitting at the table with us, she asked me what I do. And I said, well, I don't know what to do. This is my background. I was at a construction company. I was a medic. Hopefully God will find something for me to do in these things. But I send resumes out, and I'm just not getting anything back. And I got to figure out what to do for work. And she puts her hand on my arm and she says, have you thought about you're right where you're supposed to be? And I thought, oh my goodness, no, I had not thought about that. So we were driving home and I was praying about that. I said, what does that mean? What does that mean? I got home with my wife and I said, it hit me, but I don't, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, but I don't understand what that means. Where am I?
Yeah, because I don't even know where I'm at. Right.
Yeah. And if you can imagine, I got tears in my eyes. I'm thinking about this. God, just the way he revealed himself was so beautiful. And it became very clear that he had brought me to Texas to work with Rusty to be a part of this ministry. Now, more background on me. I dropped out of school when I was barely 14 years old. And
Wow.
I had got a GED so I could go in the military, and I thought school's not for me. And okay, so God calls me to be in this ministry, but I don't know much about this. I've learned a lot from Rusty, but what do I do? How do I do this? And I got a call from a guy at the VA, and he says, have you thought about going to school? And I said, well, interestingly enough, I am thinking about it. He says, well, of course, the VA will pay you to go to school. He says, but there's also a stipend available. We'll pay an extra, it was like $1,400 a month to go to school. Oh, that got my attention.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, I'll go to school, and I'll hopefully I can figure out how to do this. I didn't do well in school the first time. And turned out I absolutely loved it. And I got my associates, my bachelor's, my master's, and I'm working on a PhD now. But,
Wow.
I was going to tell you. So after this incident in Oklahoma, and it really became clear that this is what God had called us to be in Texas for. You know, Rusty's the first guy I met basically being here. And so I go to Rusty, and I'm excited, and I said, Rusty, you're not going to believe this. This is exactly why God called me to be in Texas. This is why he brought us here, is to be here and work with you in this ministry. And Rusty says, no. I don't want a partner in ministry. This is my ministry. You go start your own.
Wow.
Like, wait a minute.
And I said, well, I think I'm supposed to be your Polycarp. And so here I am. And it was kind of funny. He tried so hard to chase me away. He'd get mad at me, and I'd leave. And I said, okay, see you tomorrow. And I come back the next day. And eventually he loses temper with me, and I say, okay, see you tomorrow. And I just kept coming back. About 6 months after that, Rusty had a heart attack and was in the hospital. And I said, well, Rusty, give me the phone numbers, and I'll call, and I'll get the next venues canceled, or at least rescheduled to when you're feeling better. And he says, no, I want you to go out. I want you to teach it. Just go. I said, oh man, I'm not ready for that. He says, you'll be fine. Just tell them what you know. And I said, okay. So I went out, and I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And the amazing thing is that God never allowed Rusty to travel with me again. We tried twice, and both times he ended up in the hospital.
Mm.
But God knew what he was doing when he was preparing me to move into the ministry to take Rusty's place. And Rusty had to learn to step back and be the organizer of it and the figurehead of it to help this go forward. And, we just lost Rusty last year, and I still find myself saying, oh, I can't wait to tell him. Oh, wait. All right.
Yeah.
Because we'd always give each other reports on when we were going out and meeting with people, So.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing story,
Right.
an amazing testimony. One cannot help but see the hand of God working in your life and his life, and putting you together, and even the whole Jonah story. And I hope that you've thought about writing this down, maybe publishing a book.
Well, right now I have I would love to, but right now I have ahead of me that dissertation. We have a second exhibit that I have not been traveling with. It's tells the story, the history of Bibles carried by American soldiers. So we have Bibles that date back to 1659, the first Bible published in English for soldiers. And you've got some of them there. And when I was doing research for that, it turned out that there was nothing written on that. I couldn't find any of the materials. And so that has become the basis for my dissertation, is the history of American soldiers' Bibles.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, that definitely is a good topic.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things you said in your testimony there, and even the American Soldiers Bibles thing that you're doing, is pretty timely. I mean, I think a lot of people nowadays could stand to hear, you know, why they could trust the Bible, and you talking about Rusty pulling those scrolls out of his van and stuff. I mean, more people
Right.
could benefit from knowing that and seeing those things, and I just hope that people take advantage of the fact that you guys are out there doing this stuff and making these
I
things
hope so.
available.
Yeah, yeah, that's really amazing. Well, you answered part of it, but maybe you could elaborate just a little bit more of, everyone has a why. Why do we do the things we do? Why do we have a certain job or work the hours that we work? And, so what is your why? What really drives you in this ministry?
I think the single biggest thing is as I said, I was taught as a kid, as you know, and I took it into adulthood, and unfortunately, I taught my children that the Bible we have today has been corrupted, and that it wasn't trustworthy, that it was just a moral book. And when I learned the truth of that, I had to go back, and my children are adults, and say, "Hey, kids, I taught you wrong. Please hear me now." And thankfully, they did. They heard me, and all of them uh, have come to the Lord and understand that the Bible is true and it's accurate, and we trust it as God's word to us. He speaks to us through its pages, right? Um, that is probably my single biggest motivation, is talking to younger people, youth group age, middle school and high schoolers, and helping to arm them as they go out into the world, where the world comes against them and says, "Oh, that Bible's nonsense. Faith is nonsense. That's just stuff your parents taught you. It's not real." And I really like to, as best as I can, I try to give them some basic apologetics, a basic foundation of these evidences are out here, and all it takes is looking. And I kind of go through some of these things, and I tell them, I say, you don't have to be an encyclopedia of this knowledge. All you have to be able to say is, no, there's real evidence. Come with me. We'll look it up together,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
I think in a
there was a
world full
survey
of
in.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say there was a survey in 2012 by oh, I always say Barnum, and that isn't quite
Yeah,
right.
Frank Barna and Viola
Barna, that's it.
Barna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
by Barna Group, and 78% of self-professing Christians believe there's errors in their Bibles, some significant, but they don't know where. And so I think that really sheds a lot of light on where Christianity is today. Um, if you don't believe the Bible is true and it's accurate, why would you pick it up and read it?
Hmm.
Right? They tend to
Yeah.
rely on their pastors to read it to them, or the youth group leader, or the Sunday school teacher, or whatever it is, because they know where those problems are, and I don't know. So why I'll just rely on them to read it. And so I want to get out there, and I want to show people the Bible they have is accurate, and I want to try to answer the questions that keep them from reading the Bible, right? I mean, the
Yeah,
questions we get are, you know, who picked the books of the Bible, or how do we know the manuscripts were real, or how do we know the translations were accurate? These types of things. So we want to step by step go through these things with people and try to put that to rest for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
yeah, those are important lessons for people to get.
Well, and something you mentioned, and John, I want to encourage you as well as the other people that may hear this to start praying this prayer for our loved ones. And I know Jake hears me say this at nauseum, I'm sure, but this, we need to be praying for the children in our family and our loved ones, that they would love God's word more than man's word, that they would love his ways more than the ways of man, and understand that men are liars, and unfortunately through time, men have lied a lot and continue to lie, but God's word is true and endures forever, and it's more true than people with degrees behind their names, with whether that's professors to doctors.
Or their white coats.
Yeah. So, and they've become in essence priests of the modern age, and they believe that more than they believe in God's word, and that we just need to keep that kind of thing in prayer, and especially as praying
Absolutely.
parents and praying grandparents. That's the hope for the next generation. That they would really truly believe and know. Because we just can't hardly know anything about the world. The world, especially with AI and everything coming in, you just don't know what to believe. But we know God's word. We can believe that.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's a good point. And I would just echo the how there really is only a single thread of truth right now, and it's the word. And because, like you're saying, so much other thing. We live in a society and a time where there's more quote unquote knowledge than has ever been available to anyone before, and yet I think people are more lost than they've ever been. And I think that
Yes, that is a true statement.
if we would just turn back to the baseline of truth, I think we'd find a lot of answers.
yeah.
Well, when we were talking just before we started there, you were talking about homeschool groups and things, and interacting with a lot of homeschool groups with this exhibit. The one thing I do notice is, as a general statement, the kids are more spiritually prepared to face the world than kids that are going to public school all day and have exposure to God's word, God the Father, the Son, on Sunday morning, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily demonstrated in the house all day, even though they may be very faithful people. Just life gets busy, right?
Yeah.
And the kids aren't necessarily prepared to make that jump from living in the shadow of their parents' faith to becoming their own faith. So then they go off to college and they're told that's nonsense. Oh, that's just silly stuff. That's just what your parents told you. And they're not prepared to answer that.
Yeah.
They think, oh my gosh, maybe they're right. Maybe this isn't really me. Yeah. Yeah. So I am a big proponent of homeschool groups.
Yeah.
I think that's an important point you make. Is as a kid, you don't realize that your faith is shallow. You think you're doing what you need to do, especially you spend, when you think about public schooling, you're more time away from your parents than with them, and someone else is raising your kids essentially, and they're teaching them whatever they want when the doors close, and a lot of times it's it can be good, but a lot of times it's not too. And once they, like you were saying, once they go off to college and hear something different, they've never been challenged before because they're kind of in their bubble, and
Yeah.
and then they find out how shallow what they thought they knew is, because they haven't had the pouring in that they needed to have a solid foundation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we want to come back to the homeschool thought in just a minute. So right now I'm showing some pictures that are on your website of some demonstrations, and maybe you can talk a little bit about the printing press and how it was revolutionary to the world, and how it kind of made something that was made the Bible that had been traditionally very expensive, and made it mass produced in the hands of everybody. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So I had mentioned when we started this conversation that we have all these biblical artifacts that are authentic artifacts. The printing press that we're seeing here is the only reproduction that we have in the exhibit. And it's, as you said, it's a reproduction of Johann Gutenberg's printing press. Now, we do have a page from a Gutenberg Bible, an original page. And so the typeset that's in it, there's the page right there, actually. And the typeset that we have in the printing press is the typeset for that page. So we print copies of it. And the printing press, without giving a whole lot of story on this, these are big topics, of course.
Right.
At the time of Gutenberg in Europe, 99+% of the population was illiterate. Okay. And the only people that knew how to read and write were primarily the clergy or the royalty, right? Or very, very wealthy people. And the reason that is because written materials were so expensive. So if you knew how to read and write, you would learn to read and write and speak Latin or French. Those were the languages of the commerce of not only commerce, but the legal system, the government, all of these things, right? And the church, of course. So when Gutenberg set up to do this idea of movable type, to that point, everything was manuscript. The scribes hand wrote everything. It was very, very expensive. It was very time consuming. And if you can imagine, the scribes not only knew how to read and write, but they knew how to write very well, very clearly. The better the scribe you were, the more money you would charge. If you were accurate, you developed a reputation of being accurate. All of these things. So I often tell people, think about a very high-priced lawyer today is kind of what the scribe was in that day. So if you were going to have this scribe make a copy of the Bible for you, the scribe is going to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for 3 to 3.5 years to make a single copy of the Bible.
Man,
Right.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I've heard that
But
just the Torah itself would be a whole year. If you wanted, like present
yeah,
day, if you wanted to go get a Torah scroll handwritten on like sheepskin or something like that, today it would take it a whole year to get one of those.
it's a whole year. Yes. Yeah. It's a very time consuming work. Accuracy, of course, is at a premium.
Mm-hmm.
So what Gutenberg saw is this void. I think he was an entrepreneur. I think he saw the opportunity to make a lot of money, right? He was a metalsmith and engraver by trade. And he had this idea of creating individual letters one at a time that you could arrange into the words, into the sentences, into the paragraphs, so forth for the page. It would take some time to get that page set, but once it was set, you print. On the printing press, me and Rusty, we used to be able to print about a page a minute when we were doing just a steady pace.
That seems pretty fast.
Right? So instead of 8 hours of work to 10 hours of work for a page, you're doing a page every minute once it's set up. So for Gutenberg and his shop, they began to produce 50, 60 Bibles every 3 to 4 months. Now, they had a
Wow.
team of, say half a dozen people or something in the shop. But with that team, it may have been a few more, but with that team of people, you're able to produce these Bibles. It was just light speed to anything that they'd seen before. So it took time. What Gutenberg realized, he realized his worst fear. Once the public saw what he was doing with
Oh, we may have lost you for a second.
and they produced over 8 million books in the first.
We lost you
Bible.
for a
Are you
second.
guys familiar
You said
with the Bible?
8 million books.
In 50 years.
Wow.
So from 1450 to 1500.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And that printing press looks like it takes quite a bit of force. You said a page a minute. How much effort are you having to put out to do that? Are you like breaking a sweat?
It puts about 2,000 pounds of pressure down on the paper, and it pushes the ink into the pores of the paper. So it's not just a stamp, it's actually a press, right? And so I have to lean onto it pretty hard. I'm 200 and some pounds, so I got to lean back on it really hard to get that bar all the way around. So when the kids come up to print and things, I back them up. I can push as hard as I can, and then I back them up, and we get it printed. But yes, about 2,000 pounds of pressure is what it creates on that, and it presses the ink into the paper. We use a modern copy paper. The paper that they had at the time of Gutenberg was really kind of a coarse paper, and they had to moisten it so it would take the ink and print properly.
Hmm.
That's the difference between printing press and stamping, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is you mentioned this is it's modeled after the Gutenberg press, and it's the only item in the museum that's a recreation. And you were in construction, right? So did you build this, and is this built by hand? It's a pretty impressive piece of craftsmanship.
The printing press that's in most of these pictures, that one there is one. This picture coming up here that has Rusty. That's one that developed the initial press that he built. And it's kind of funny, when Rusty was doing his dissertation work on Gutenberg, he just didn't think that press that was in Germany, in Mainz, Germany, was accurate. That had to be a later iteration of what Gutenberg would have had. So he was trying to figure out, what did Gutenberg start with? And he believed it was a 15th century, maybe 14th century wine press. And so he modeled his printing press on that wine press, and he built one just for giggles, just to see how it would work, what it was like. And a museum up in Illinois saw it and said, "Wow, that's amazing. Can we buy it?" And they bought it. And another museum saw it and said, "Hey, will you build us one? Will you build us one?" And now we've built over 20 of these, and they're in museums all over the world.
Wow.
And the Museum Bible in DC, those are our presses. We built one for the Vatican Library in Rome. We built one that's at a museum in Singapore. And then, of course, Houston, here near us, Glen Rose, Texas, at the Creation Evidence Museum. We built one for Dr. Carl Baugh down there.
Oh, yeah. Well, interestingly enough,
Yeah.
recently Jake and I talked to John Adolphi, who has a museum on the East Coast about creation evidence. And then I also knew the guy that was in Lubbock, Joe Taylor, or at Crosbyton at Mount Blanco Museum. And those guys are all kind of similar. That's a good circle of people to be connected with, and especially the guys doing the
Sure.
creation. This is a good fit in a space like that for sure.
Yeah.
No,
And one of the
that's
interesting things about the printing press that Dr. Ball was seeing was that it would allow him to bring public schools in to see the printing press. And that's something that helps us when public schools, especially through the South and up through the Midwest, are teaching on Gutenberg, usually about fifth or sixth grade. When they see the opportunity to have a printing press and an original page from Gutenberg there, they'll invite us in. And we get into public schools here in Texas, just down the road. There's a public school here that's the principal and the superintendent came and saw the exhibit. I went through the presentation with them and I showed them. I said, look, when I'm talking to a public school, I'm not teaching the history of Christianity. I'm teaching the history of written communication. And I teach on Gutenberg specifically. And I gave them my teaching note and everything. And they said, wow, will you come set up at our public high school and teach the kids about Gutenberg and written communication? And so it's a wonderful tool that the Lord gave us to be able to get into places.
yeah.
And of course, I respect their boundaries. I'm never going to embarrass anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and especially you come into their house. There are rules you have to follow in that house for sure.
That's right.
Well, and
But it's
that's
kind
a
of neat
great.
when one of the kids will go, "Hey, what's that big school over there?" Or "What's the?" And I can answer them. I can tell them what it is.
Yeah.
I can go,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm sure the fact that so wasn't the Bible one of the main things they would print back then? It was probably
yes, yes,
one of the
absolutely.
like
Um, I,
so historically it makes sense to discuss that.
absolutely, absolutely. And I started to mention earlier um, the Geneva Bible we're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The Geneva Bible, the cost had come down in about that 120 years from the invention of movable type to where parents could afford to buy a Bible for their children as they kind of came of age. It was still very expensive. It was about a year's wages. So oftentimes when I'm talking with like middle school, high schoolers, I say, think about this. Maybe your parents are walking to work or riding a bike to work, and they've been saving and saving to buy a car. But they decided instead of buying a car, they're going to buy a Bible for your home so you can learn to read and write. That's the sacrifice these parents were making, right? It was a year's wages. But if you had a Bible in your home, that means you could learn to read and write, as well as having the work and understanding God's word in your home. It was always a dual benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's some difficult difficult reading in the Bible. So I mean, if you can pick that up and learn to read from that, which I think is a good direction to go, is learn to read from reading your Bible. I think is that really sets you up, I think, for some success.
Here in America, there was no textbooks to learn to read and write until the 1830s. Every child learned to read and write from the Bible.
Yeah, and I think that was mainstay at the schoolhouse was the Bible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was in public education for 19 years of my life as a school teacher, and I taught with a guy one time, and I can't remember. I think he was teaching metaphors and similes, and he got permission from the principal and he used the Bible, and he taught the the parables that Jesus taught in the Bible. He taught them. I always thought that was a really cool way to do that. But that's how everybody used to learn.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
But so there are people. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, David Barton with Wall Builders,
Oh yeah.
his programs on American history are really, really incredible on teaching the foundation of the Bible to the foundation of America, I guess is what I wanted to say.
Wall
Yeah,
builders.
he
Okay.
definitely has some really good information. He's got a really good museum and of all that founding documents and stuff like that, and how it all relates and ties into, the
Yeah.
faith of the founders and things like that. He does some really good presentations.
And we built program as well.
Yeah, that's neat. Well, there's going to be some people out listening to this, and we hope we've introduced our audience to a new resource. And the great news about this is you travel, and you will come about anywhere in the world, from what I understand. And so if somebody's listening out there, they've got a homeschool group, they've got a church, a Bible fellowship, some kind of Torah observant fellowship or synagogue, church, school, whatever it is, club. What do they do? How and what do you offer? How would they get you to come out?
Yeah. All we need is an invitation. Invitation, we schedule our journeys kind of with multiple steps. We're always looking ahead a year to a year and a half in advance. Someone calls me in Iowa, I'll pin in my map, and then I start finding other locations that get us along the way going there and getting back. And we don't bring the exhibit out. We operate just on donations. I didn't mention this before. I'm ended up being medically retired from the Air Force, and so I ended up in a place like Rusty, right, where I don't get paid this. All the money that's donated to us just keeps us putting fuel in the tank and tires on the truck. And so when we go out, we always try to get the best bang for the buck that when we're going out. People can reach us through the website, theenduringword.org, Facebook, the Enduring Word Museum. Call me any way they like. They can reach out to me and we can discuss getting there. I think it's also important. We'll go to just about anywhere we're invited. And when we go out, a little comfort to some folks, we don't get into doctrine and we don't get into theology. Our mission, our calling is to teach the Bible, the truth about the Bible, and encourage people to read it for themselves. I think when I was talking with Matt earlier, it's life-changing when you can sit down and read the Bible from beginning to end and you start seeing the truth of what's in there, right?
Amen. Yeah. Yeah, there's no middleman needed.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we encourage our audience, especially if you've got a homeschool group, get John involved, and it's great that you would even come to a public school. From having taught as long as I did, I'm very familiar with the standards that the state of Texas puts out, and it would be very easy to fit this into your curriculum. And by law, it's very legal to do because it it fits into history. It fits into in communication. I mean, there's a lot of things that would fit right directly into a school curriculum without being weird or causing a problem. And
Yeah.
we encourage you to reach out to him, and I'm sure he could help explain it if anybody did have questions. And he can. Sounds like you could kind of custom tailor a program according to to fit if there were certain rules like that. And we encourage you to not only check out his website, but if you feel so moved and want to donate to the cause, I'm sure if you wanted him to come out, he would need a donation to kind of get the wheels going on that, and especially if he's traveling cross country. It sounds like you probably have to have that thing looks heavy. Looks like it takes a great deal of effort to load it up and put it in a trailer and take it down the road.
I have 2 big rolling carts and a toy hauler trailer, and they're about 1,000 pounds apiece, each cart that carries all of this. But and just to clarify, we don't need the donation to come out and visit.
Okay, great.
Our thought on that is God provides for us in ways that we can never imagine, and we don't want to ever say no. If there's some small organization that really wants us to come out, we don't want to have a dollar amount attached to it to be able to come visit. And then those that can bless us, we hope that they'll do that and bless us. And it's been that way. We've never charged a fee for this, and here we are 30 some years later, and God just keeps paving the way for us to grow a little bit more and go a little bit further.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Jake, do you have anything?
Yeah. So real quick, just on the visiting the museum situation. So
Yeah.
you have a travel museum situation. Do you also have like a home base museum situation where people can just come and if they're in
No,
the
we do
area?
not. We don't know.
Okay.
We do not. We're always traveling. Yes.
Okay.
But we travel locally enough. Most of our stops are on our website, and
Okay.
it's a little bit behind right now because we've been working on a map that shows drop pins at all the locations that are coming up, and we're transitioning to that. So hopefully that'll be up in the next week or so, and people can see ahead of time where we're going. But
And like kind of meet you there.
yeah, so those of us that are in North Texas, when I just had a couple things here around Weatherford areas where we're out of, and just had several locations around here that we could have had you at to come see.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. And I will add some images here as well from your Instagram and probably off your Facebook. I'm looking at that, and I'll pop that in this presentation. So, and then there is a contact form, and that's actually how you and I got together. I just filled this out, and here we are.
Yeah.
And so that's a great place. I can testify that this does work, and you
It
can
works.
get John. And but Jake, what else were you gonna say?
Oh, that was about it. I mean, there's so much information in there, and I think.
If I could mention one more thing,
Yeah, go
Sure.
ahead.
on our Facebook, I'm not a big fan of Facebook. I'm not a big fan of social media, but that is kind of the world we live in.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is every week, give or take a little bit, I try to put a something significant that's happening in the biblical archaeological world, right? So this week I put a short writing on Papyrus 65 that is one of the early manuscripts of the New Testament. So different things that affirm our faith, I try to put on there. So I'd encourage people to follow us on Facebook and see some positive things on there, right?
Yeah. There's definitely plenty of negative and plenty of things that are a terrible waste of your time, but God's word is definitely not a waste of your time.
Right.
And I think if this is where the people are, that's where you have to go with the word. I mean,
Yes.
you take the light into the darkness. You don't shy away from it.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I just keep coming back the whole time you're talking. I just keep thinking about, we in Psalms we need to be as it says, so the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs for you, and we need to hunger and thirst for God's righteousness and His Word, and we just ask, if you're listening out there, bottom line is, read your Bible. In fact, probably turn us all off, and that you probably should go read your Bible. That's more important than anything else anybody's got to say. So,
Yes, yes.
and I heard you say that, and I appreciate that, and we want to encourage people to do that, and so we certainly appreciate you coming, being able to talk to us this evening, and we're going to kind of wrap it up here and let you go, and we do want to encourage people to look at having you out, to donate to the ministry, to look at your website, and anything else you'd like to say, John?
I'll just say that it's been a pleasure talking with you both, and thank you for having me on here. And if you ever want to have me back, well, there is no shortage of materials that we can talk about, right?
That's true.
No, and if you'll stay on the line with us just for a second, we want to finish our recording, and just stay with us for a second, and then we'll talk about a few things, but we appreciate everyone being here, and this is Matt
And Jake.
signing out.